Hi, third grade. I'm here to read chapter 20, Surprises of Detectives and Toga. So I'm going to get started. We'll see what surprises are in store for us today. The boys stared incredulously at Lukos. So you don't believe me? Lukos asked with a dangerous edge to his voice. But the chain belongs to Tellus, Mucius managed to stammer. No, Lukos screamed. The chain and cloak belong to me. Tellus frequently visits me. I lent him the cloak. Tellus sent the courier to the newspaper, Julius murmured. He did it on my suggestion, Lukos said. Tellus has nothing to do with the crime. You've been on the wrong track. He went to the table, hastily rummaged under the heap of papers. Do you recognize that? He asked, showing them a writing tablet. This is Rufus's tablet. I'll tell you just how I copied his handwriting. I slit through the letters, pressed the tablet against the wall of the temple, and painted over it with red paint. There. Can you see it? He held it in front of the lantern. Showing up in thin illuminated letters on the writing tablet were the words, Caius is a dumbbell. The method by which the forging had been done was just what the boys had guessed. I also assaulted your teacher and stole the writing tablet from him, Lukos went on, shouting hoarsely. Here are his books and pictures. He tossed several rolls of parchment paper down at their feet. Do you believe me now? The boys believed him. Lukos was also a head taller than Xanthippus. Why have you done all of this? Mucius cried out. Why were you so bent on hurting Rufus? He discovered my greatest secret, Lukos said sternly. He must die. Filled with horror, the boys looked desperately around for a way to escape. But again, Lukos seemed to guess their thoughts. Don't think you can run off to the prefect and repeat all this, he said mockingly. Oh, no, my dears. Tomorrow morning, my ship leaves for Ostia. I shall sail back to my native land, where I shall be perfectly safe. He laughed scornfully. And you will stay right here in this vault. You will never manage to open the doors. I alone know the secret mechanism. He took the sword from the table and with one powerful blow cut through the cords running across the floor. There. Now you can't get out at all. You can make all the racket you please. These walls are thick. No one lives back here and nobody ever passes. If you're lucky, you'll be found. If not, well, that's your hard luck. Again he laughed maliciously. Inwardly, Mucius was rejoicing. Lukos had not thought of the ladder leading to the roof. From there they could call for help. But he rejoiced too soon. Lukos considered for a moment. No, you had better be locked up in the cellar, he said. He stopped and lifted a heavy wooden trapdoor in the floor. Beneath yawned a black opening, and the boys saw slippery stone steps leading down into the dark depths. Come on, get down there, Lukos howled, or I'll kill all of you. Surprisingly, Mucius was the first to obey. He walked slowly toward the cellar steps. To reach them, he had to pass close to Lukos. Suddenly, he twisted around, grabbed Lukos' arm with one hand, and with the other tried to wrench the sword away from him. Lukos was taken by surprise for a moment. Then he defended himself wildly, but Mucius held on, not knowing his life was at stake. Help, he roared. The others awoke from their numb daze and fell upon Lukos all at once, like a pack of wild dogs. They gripped his arms and legs and tried to drag him to the ground. Lukos swayed back and forth. He succeeded in freeing one arm and struck Caius in the face with his clenched fist. Caius went down, but instantly on his feet, fighting mad. He seized the heavy stool in both hands and brought it down with all his might on the back of Lukos' head. Lukos fell forward on his face and lay motionless with arms outstretched. The boys were pale and breathing heavily. Bravo, Caius, Mucius said, gasping for air. Caius was still standing with the stool in his hands. His nose was bleeding and his eyes were ablaze with fury. Shall I give him another? He breathed. I think he's dead, Mucius said. That was more than Caius had bargained for. Dead? He stammered. Dead? Flavius repeated, shuddering. Come on, we've got to get out, Mucius urged them. Get out? How can we? The ladder, Mucius explained. We'll climb up on the roof and call for help. He snatched up the lantern and ran into the long corridor which led to the front entrance. The others trotted after him, but the ladder stood in a niche beside the first door. By the dim glow of the lantern, the boys could see 10 or 12 rungs. The rest of the ladder was lost in the dim shadows above. That's pretty steep, Flavius murmured. Don't worry. I've been on top already. Mucius encouraged him and began climbing. The others followed close at his heels, but when they had reached about the middle, the foot of the ladder suddenly slipped backward, and the top slid down the wall at rapidly increasing speed. Desperately, the boys clung to the rungs. Luckily, the bottom struck the opposite wall of the corridor, and the ladder came to a stop. The boys climbed back as far as they could and jumped down to the floor. Boy, that might have turned out badly, Publius said with relief. They tried to set the ladder up again, but it was jammed so tightly between the two walls that they could not budge it. After struggling desperately with it for a long time, they gave up. They shook the door, drummed their fists against it, but here, too, their efforts were in vain. This is useless, Mucius decided. Remember, there's still another door beyond this one. No one can hear us. They hurried back to the vaulted room and hammered against the rear door with every object they could pick up. They could not get at the shutters because of the iron bars over the window. Caius and Publius tugged wildly at the ends of the cords, which Leucos had severed. Oh, but the door did not move. Wait, Antonius said suddenly. Remember, Leucos spoke of another door in there where Tellus went out? He pointed to the curtain in front of the niche. They dashed into the chamber and stopped in amazement. 4 bare stone walls confronted them. There was neither door nor window. The candle on the table had burned down to almost nothing and was sputtering its last gasps. How could Tellus have gone out? Mucius said slowly. Maybe there's a secret door, Julius said, and began tapping on the walls. But as he approached a dark corner, he started back in fright. A fat toad was squatting on the floor, staring fixedly at him. That's Tellus, Antonius cried. Leucos has changed him into a toad. The others backed away slowly, throwing suspicious glances at the toad. Leucos said himself he can't cast spells, Flavius whispered. He said that only so we wouldn't know Tellus is a toad, Antonius said. After all, it's a terrible crime to change anyone into a toad. They returned to the vaulted room and slumped down, discouraged, on the floor, all in a row. They were tired and frightened, and their bare feet felt like lumps of ice. Leucos still lay motionless beside the cellar trap door, which had fallen shut during the scuffle. The mysterious disappearance of Tellus made their skin crawl. None of them quite believed Tellus had been changed into a toad, but still he seemed to have vanished into thin air. And the lantern Mucius had placed on the table was growing steadily dimmer. Soon we'll be sitting in the dark, Mucius said, sighing. He drew up his knees, wrapped his cold feet in his toga. Flavius, sitting at the end of the row, leaned forward and asked nervously, How long do we have to wait until someone finds us? Until we starve to death, Caius growled. It takes a while to starve, Julius said. So much the worse, said Publius with a short laugh. People can live for years on bread and water, Antonius said. My father says that prisoners of war are only given bread and water, and they have to work besides. And there's a picture of the boys sitting on the floor, and Leucos there on the floor. If we only had bread and water, Caius said, I could eat 10 loaves of bread right now. They say thirst is worse than hunger, Flavius whispered. Stop that, Mucius snapped at him. Rufus has had nothing to eat or drink for 3 days, and he is still alive. But he won't be for long, Publius said. Julius regarded Leucos thoughtfully. I should like to know what was the secret of his which Rufus discovered, he said. Do you think it had something to do with the red wolf and the sheep's clothing? Rufus must have been delirious when he said that, Publius suggested. That's right, Antonius agreed. People say all sorts of things when they are starving to death. We once had a slave, an old man from Greece, who broke a bowl and was put in chains. He was given nothing to eat. I visited him and tried to cheer him up. He was so pleased, he told me a funny story. The earth isn't flat, he said, but round as a ball, and it turns around the sun. I brought him food on the sly because I was sorry for him. He has a strange ring on his finger, said Julius, who was still staring at Leucos. Antonius crawled closer to Leucos, then cried in astonishment. That's Tellus's seal ring. I saw the ring this afternoon on Tellus's finger. That's odd, Julius murmured. He must have stolen it from Tellus before he changed him into a toad, Antonius said. What does a toad need a ring for? He must have thought. And look here, Antonius exclaimed again. See what Leucos has on his feet? The boys stooped forward curiously. The black cloak with the silver stars had slipped up, and they could see that Lukos was wearing peculiar shoes with extremely high wooden soles. "Those are Corthorns," Julia said. "Actors wear them on stage." "So that's why he walked in a funny way," Mucius muttered to himself. "But why is he wearing them?" Flavius asked. "Aha!" Mucius exclaimed in sudden excitement, leaping to his feet. Alarmed, the others jumped up also. "What is it?" they cried. "What dumbbells we are!" Mucius groaned. "What complete dumbbells! Now I know who the Red Wolf is." "Who?" the others demanded in feverish excitement. "Lukos." Mucius brought out the word like a curse. "Lukos is the Greek word for wolf. Don't you remember that last list of Greek words we learned?" "Of course," Antonius seconded him. "Ho, Lukos, the wolf." The others repeated in chorus. "But Lukos isn't red," Caius pondered. "Not Lukos," Mucius said, "but remember the sign on the outside door. The word Lukos is painted in bright red letters. All we had to do was look across the street, and we would have realized at once what Rufus meant. Naturally, he couldn't have known we would be so stupid. Even Xantippus was stupid." "Ho, Lukos, the wolf," the others repeated, staring wide-eyed at the lifeless Lukos. "But what about the sheep's clothing?" Publius asked. "There," Mucius said, pointing to Lukos's tangled, dirty yellow hair. "That looks like sheep's wool." He stooped forward and gripped Lukos by the hair. "What are you doing?" the others exclaimed. "We are supposed to tear the sheep's clothing off him. You'll see in a minute," Mucius said with grim resolution. "But you can't pull a dead man by the hair," Flavius protested in horror. "I don't care," Mucius growled, and he pulled with all his strength. Suddenly something gave, and he was holding a wig in his hand. Underneath it appeared a bald pate with a large scar across it. "Tellus!" the other boys shouted, incredulous. "I suspected it," Mucius murmured, but he was really as surprised as the others. That's the end. Chapter 20, and chapter 21 is the light. I wonder if they'll make it out.